Hi, welcome back to Partum the Mess, a podcast about humorous, inspirational, and educational experiences presented by first-time moms trying to navigate parenthood while keeping our sanity. I'm your host, Brittany, and we have our co-host, Cody.
Hey, how's it going?
And Jess.
Hi.
This is episode 8, and today we'll catch up with you, and then we'll discuss reflux and lactose overload. So what's going on?
So it has been a lot warmer season. We've been outside a lot, which has been awesome. But I have got to ask you guys for some advice because my deodorant that I have used for like a decade all of a sudden doesn't seem to work anymore. Like I have to put it on like 3 or 4 times a day.
Oh, that sucks.
And I have heard stories about women going through pregnancy or postpartum or whatever where that happens. And I just don't even know what to do because I haven't like tried a new deodorant in a million years. And when I did, like I tried a couple natural deodorants and had like really bad reactions to them. So I don't know. Did you guys experience anything like that? Or like what deodorant do you use and does it work for you?
So I haven't heard of that, but that seems like logical, like when your hormones change and stuff like that. It really sucks, I'm sure. I've had a little bit of an issue with mine as well, but I'm not sure if it's that or if it's because I also changed scents. But I use Doterra's deodorant, which I've had an issue for a long time with deodorants, and I used to use just like whatever my mom bought me, like Secret or whatever. And then when I started learning more about like ingredients, and I didn't totally understand, but people would say things like, oh, certain deodorants have aluminum in it. And I had no concept why that was bad, but I was like, oh, people are like concerned. Maybe I should. I was like trusting their concern, right? So I was like looking for something natural. And then I think I tried Tom's of Maine and it didn't work for me. It just felt wet. And people say that like when you switch to natural, you are going to feel wet, but you're probably not going to stink. I don't know if that's true across the board for everybody.
It is. Well, the aluminum is what it clogs your sweat glands or it prevents your sweat glands from going, which is unhealthy because you do want to clear
release those toxins.
Yeah.
You do, but it's the deodorant, not the antiperspirant. Antiperspirant is where you get the aluminum and stuff. And
So you're not looking for something that doesn't make you sweat because you're looking for something that helps like keep the smell nice.
I don't want to like have to shower a ton of times a day and put on. I mean, I already have to shower because I've got puke and everything. But, you know, it's one more thing.
But yeah.
Well, the one that I found, and again, everybody's different, but there's actually 2 that worked fairly well, but I can't remember if the first one I'm going to mention is like antiperspirant or not, but like the clinical, I want to say it was Dove or Secret, the clinical whatever one, worked well for me as far as like smell and all that. But then I tried doTERRA's deodorant, and that's like a natural one, and the balance scent is opposed to their citrus scent.
I love that balance scent. Yeah.
That one for me worked better with staving off the smell. And it's almost like it doesn't smell strongly. It almost like neutralizes through the day. But the citrus one kind of gets like, I don't know how to word it. Kind of like, I'm not sure. That doesn't smell like sweat, but it's not awesome.
Yeah.
So it's
Is it like the orange? Does it have more orange or does it have like grapefruit and stuff?
More orange.
Yeah, because I'm not a fan of their wild orange as a scent. I just feel like I don't know. I love citrus scents in general, but that one's not my favorite. Did you just smell yourself?
I did. I was gonna be like, anyway, we'll talk. So I use Schmidt's. I think that's SCHMIDTS. Schmidt's, yeah. And I use the rose and vanilla. It's not like my favorite. I have deodorants I really like the smell of when I smell them from the tube. But what I noticed with every other deodorant I've ever had in my life, and I didn't realize until I used this deodorant, is that I would start to smell like deodorant and BO throughout the day. And I was like, I guess this is what everyone smells like. It's just like this weird blend of it. But when I started using this, I realized that even though I sweat, I'm a sweaty person. My husband's a sweaty person. Our kids are doomed. It is what it is. And that's fine. I've just accepted it. But I like that I smell consistently like the smell that this is. So even though it's rose, vanilla, like I'm pretty picky with smells I really love. It's fine. I don't hate the smell, but I like the fact that I smell exactly like the deodorant for the entirety of the day. And if I don't shower that night, the next morning, I still smell like I don't wake up smelling like BO. So
That's nice. Do they have any other scents?
yeah, they have other scents. I haven't tried them, so I'm not going to endorse them. But yeah, they have a few different. I found one that's charcoal and magnesium. They have a few.
Are those available online or just, I mean, on their website? Or
Yeah, you can buy them on Amazon or at Walmart, or really any major retailer should carry them, I think. I found them like Walmart, Smith's. I don't know if Smith's is a big enough store to.
Oh, I don't know how far it is, but I'm assuming other Krogers will have them.
Yeah, I bet they would. Oh, here's another one. Fragrance free. No fragrance. Yeah, maybe
that's
me
my
nervous.
preference.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes,
So you could give that a try.
My deodorant that I've been using, which is not bad by any means. If you do not have hormonal issues, feel free to use it. It's the Dove unscented or sensitive skin, which is unscented.
So how does it work if you don't have an antiperspirant element in it? Then like how does it deodorize? Is it just like the chemicals in it, or the natural? If you do a natural one,
it depends on what they include. Like some of them have baking
the smell.
soda and stuff in them that helps to do a natural deodorizer. The Dove is not a natural. The Dove is an antiperspirant and deodorant. But like I said, I tried several natural ones and just always had really bad rashes and stuff. So I'll have to jump back in and see if I can find a good one, because I don't like really any of the other regular ones. Like I don't like Secret or anything.
Yeah. I've seen, I think, Native.
Yeah.
What's the one with the like French lady on the bicycle? She's like, the ad always has this French lady and she like sings about her deodorant.
I don't know, but there's a Native deodorant that's a natural deodorant.
Yeah, and I haven't tried it, but I've always been like, oh,
I did, and I did not like it.
Okay.
But that's a hard thing, is that different products are going to react to your sweat different. That's why there's so many, if there was one deodorant that worked for everyone, we would have one deodorant.
Right. It would just be like
catch-all.
the national deodorant.
Yeah. Yes, but different people react. I have talked to people, they're like, we really don't like that deodorant that you use. It doesn't work for us. So it's a lot of trial and error, and we figure out. I've been super pleased with this. I would be surprised if I ever used a different deodorant, because I think I found my one and only.
That's awesome.
My true love for deodorant world.
What about you, Brittany? What's going on?
Oh, I was like, my deodorant. So I was worried for last couple weeks, I'd say, about Swiss's walking. I was talking to you guys about that because Buddy's cruising. He's doing great. He stands up on his own and he just cruises around and is a champ. And then Swiss has been really hesitant. Like 2 months ago, she would stand up on her own and then she would even try taking a couple steps, and then she hasn't done it since. And so I noticed, I don't know, maybe about 2 weeks ago, that she was favoring her right leg and she would like kind of be on her tiptoes in her left leg. And so they had a doctor appointment, like their well child check, probably about 3 weeks ago. And they always ask, like, is there anything about your child that you're concerned with? And I'm always thinking, no, they're great. They're perfect. Whatever. Nothing's wrong. But then I started thinking or noticing that. And so I scheduled another doctor appointment and I asked them about it. But right before we went to the appointment, she started standing a little bit more and acting more confident. So I felt a little bit silly. They were great. They were understanding, but they did some, I don't know how to describe it, some tests like with her hips or whatever. And they said there was no red flags, but that if by 18 months she wasn't walking or talking, because we brought up that question as well, to then address it, and maybe they can do some ultrasounds or something like that. But they didn't want to expose her to the radiation right now unnecessarily. I said, but we met our deductible, so
she'll be 18 months this year, though.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It'll still be fine. So that was reassuring. But I wanted to mention that too, because our neighbor had referenced her daughter having a similar like pattern in her walking, and I mean, it's not really something that I've talked about with people, because a lot of things in parenting aren't something you talk about until it's happening. Like today's topic, part of it's well known with supply issues or not issues. That's a very big topic people will talk about regardless of if you've had your child yet. But people don't generally go, well, has your child ever kind of like limped on one leg and then like favored the other? Yeah, mine did. Like, no, I don't know. It's not common enough. So I didn't even think to bring it up. And I was asked if she was walking, and so I was telling my neighbor about the scenario, and she referenced that her daughter also had that, but she started walking soon. So good news that it's on the horizon. Today in particular, she's been standing up a lot and just standing for significant seconds is what I mean by significant, several seconds at a time. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
How about you, Cody?
Oh man, life has been crazy for us. So we had gone down to my hometown to visit my family, and on our way back, we knew there was going to be a storm, and we usually just, I mean, when is there not a storm in Wyoming in the winter? It's just, you know that you're taking a risk by traveling to Wyoming in the winter, and so we knew there was going to be a storm, and we just said, well, we're going to drive through it. We'll just drive slow and careful. So we were driving, we made it pretty far, and there was a pileup, basically the biggest pileup Wyoming has ever had. And we almost got into an accident. Luckily, we didn't have a collision with another car. We drove off the road, and also had a vehicle that was not my small vehicle. So there were a lot of things that we got lucky on.
You drove off the road, but not into something.
Not into a car. Yeah. Just into what is the kind of ditch off to the side of the road called?
I don't know. I was going to say snowbank, but that's not what you're describing. Like
I want to say viaduct. That's not even close. But yeah, it's the ditch right next to the road. We kind of drove into that. And anyway, it was really tricky dealing with an almost 1-year-old, an 11-month-old in the car. We were stranded out there for 14 hours. So that's just 14 hours stuck in one spot. It took us almost 24 hours to get home. And it's just really hard. It's really hard. We did not have a good amount. We thought the trip was going to be 6 hours. And we also thought that we'd be able to stop along the way and buy bananas or whatever, food. And so we stocked up on like Oreos and protein bars and sour straws. And we give 0 of those things to our child. And so it was really tricky. We did have a good amount of water, but trying to figure out how to get him to sleep was super frustrating because he's used to sleeping in his bed. And I think that's one of the downsides of having a child that's really well sleep trained is that they don't sleep well out of their zone, out of their place. So yeah, that was tricky. And then just the trauma of it all, I think. So when we originally drove off the road, there were cars crashing all around us for like hours after we had gotten there. There were cars crashing. And I remember saying to Eden, we should get out. We saw a pretty bad crash happen. And I said, you should get out and go check and see if the guy's okay. And he got out for a second and then got back in and said, we can't do this. We need to get up ahead because if someone comes from behind, they're gonna kill us. They'll kill Emmett, like especially a semi truck. Yeah. And so as we drove up to kind of the front of the wreck. I don't know if that's illegal or not, but it's what we did. We weren't risking having cars come from behind and hit us.
It's also illegal to hit other cars.
Yeah,
they get tickets for that.
A lot of illegal activities going on. I don't regret a thing. I don't regret moving to the top. But we were kind of reflecting upon all the things that had happened and how things worked out. And we thought about what would be different. Like, I think that if we would not have had a child in the car with us, we would have probably stayed back and tried to go help the person that had just gotten into the crash. And maybe not. You never know. It's hard to tell. But I do know that we were a lot more vigilant about our safety coming first and our child's safety coming first than we would have been if he wouldn't have been in the car. Like, I would have been more concerned, okay, what do people need? We should get out and offer. We have water. We could go offer water to people. And I was like, absolutely not.
Sour straws.
Yeah, sour straws. What do you guys, we got lots of Oreos and chips for people. No, but we were like, we're staying in the car. We are saving our food and water because we didn't know. We honestly didn't know how long, and no one would give us answers. And when there's 100 cars in accidents behind you and 30 cars piled up in front of you, there was no progress for that whole time. Even when they got us out, there was still wreckage all over. So it's just, having a child puts a very complicated twist on life, and I'm just grateful we made it out.
Yeah, so are we.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for sharing your updates and your perspective on that crazy experience.
Yeah,
it's crazy. We're excited about today's topic. I'm gonna let Jess take over in just a minute, but I just wanted to mention that I'm especially excited about today because a lot of the time when people are expecting, they get asked, are you gonna nurse? Like, did you both get asked that? I feel like that's a question that I was asked a lot. Yeah. And I just said,
well, especially by the doctors and stuff. I mean,
right.
Yes.
Yeah. But like by friends or peers. Okay. Yeah. I got asked that by my coworkers, and I don't know if I was asked by my family, but anyway, I usually would respond with something like, if they work, because I didn't really know, as I've said in my episode, I didn't really know a lot. I just knew stereotypes, reputations, what other people go through. And I had the understanding that there was formula if needed, but I knew that milk, like breast milk, was free. And then I also knew that a lot of women talked about, what do they call them? Lactation cookies and things like that, because you have to have a boost in your supply because it's so hard to have enough. And so that's been an issue. So I'm excited to hear the information that you've presented, not yet, provided, whatever, gathered. That's the word.
I remember getting ads on Facebook and on just like my general, I'd go to a website and an ad would pop up like, mother's milk tea, take these vitamins to have milk, eat these cookies, and I'm like, holy cow. This is ridiculous. Calm down, internet. Leave me be.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate for people who are less educated, because that seems like an issue. And when I was pregnant and I was doing all my, pre-baby research and whatever, that was one thing that I just knew, supply is an issue and I need to be on top of it. And as we'll see in just a second, that wasn't the case for me specifically, and actually caused some issues that I had no idea existed before it came about. So I'll go right into that. I'll talk about lactose overload, which is the thing that I had to do a lot of research. Well, first, Jamie was having some symptoms, some issues, and we were pretty sure it was reflux, because that's the most common thing out there, I guess, for these symptoms. And we even went to his doctor's appointment and said, I had already done all my research, and I said, we're pretty sure he has silent reflux. And
which, has anybody ever heard of that? Like,
nope.
Anybody on earth? I mean, obviously somebody, because it has a name.
Yes,
Yeah.
reflux.
Yeah.
Silent reflux, not so much. And she didn't really address that. And I also said lactose overload, and she didn't address that either. She just went straight into, okay, reflux, like normal reflux, here's what you can do or whatever. And I'm like, oh, we're already doing that, so thanks. I feel like I downplay medical professionals a lot, but I just did a lot of research and a lot of work before seeing her, and she gave me kind of, and I really do like my doctor, and she did a great job with my delivery and everything, but she just gave me these, a quick Google search would have given me the same information. So I'm like, okay, thanks, cool, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. But so silent reflux is a little bit different from actual or regular reflux. And there's a couple of terms for it, like GERD is one of them. And
I've heard of that, actually.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know that was associated with silent reflux, because I'd read it with reflex when we were looking at for Buddy and his. We didn't even know he had reflex, and I still don't know. We just were saying it looks like it, smells like it, tastes like it, like must be reflex. But is that more indicative of silent reflex or just general?
Okay, so GERD is not silent reflux. GERD is more appropriate for regular reflux. It's gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is not what we experienced with Jamie. We just didn't have those similar things where most of the time he would spit up just a little bit, mostly in the back of his throat, versus spitting up all the time. And I remember with Buddy, when he was younger, he had reflux, and he would just, every time he ate, he would just spit up all over.
And in between too.
And in between, and when he didn't eat, and just kind of all the time, he was just constantly in bandana bibs, super cute, but very uncomfortable for him. So I think he was experiencing more of reflux.
It was interesting because he wasn't fussing like we saw as a symptom, and so I think that's what confused us or made us uncertain if it was actually reflux, and still kind of questioning it now, even though it probably is, because he was so happy and smiling all the time, just would spit.
So silent reflux, just a little bit of difference in that, is not as much projectile vomiting or spit up that actually comes out. It's more like wet burps, where it sounds like he spits up, and then you check, oh no, there's nothing. It's because it has come up in his esophagus, but then it goes back down, and it more affects their breathing. He still gets hiccups a lot, but they get hiccups a lot. They have sore throat from the acid and stuff, so he would just kind of cry and just be really hoarse. he would fuss like he wanted to eat, but he wasn't hungry, but it was just like he wanted to nurse to soothe his throat. But then he would overeat, which would then increase the silent reflux and stuff. He also had a lot of wheezing and noisy breathing, because that is all part of the stomach acid, just causing a lot of problems with the esophagus and with the lungs and everything.
Wow.
A lot of congestion and coughing. So that's what made me lean more towards silent reflux versus GERD or regular reflux or whatever. And so the treatments for that were almost nothing. Most of everything just said, oh, they'll grow out of it. Okay, what do I do for the next 4 months?
Yeah.
When he's just totally crying and uncomfortable and everything. So some things you can do, though. There are some dietary things that you can do, which I'll talk about more with lactose overload. But the main thing we did was hold him upright after eating.
Yeah.
So we did that for 30 minutes. Every time he ate, we would hold him upright for 30 minutes, and then he seemed to get a little bit better. So we reduced that to 20 minutes. Then we reduced it to 10 minutes. In addition to that, we tried, and I'm not endorsing this because I don't know either way if this is what helped him or if it was some of the other things we were doing, but we tried cell salts, which I had never heard of, but everyone on the internet raved about it as a good solution for digestive issues, for reflux and stuff like that. And it's just a homeopathic mixture of minerals and salts in a tiny, tiny little tablet. And so we gave him that, just half of a tablet every feeding. And that seemed to help. It reduced his fussiness quite a bit. It reduced the amount of spit up, quote unquote. He didn't actually spit up, but it reduced that as well. But he was still had a really gurgly tummy. He was still kind of fussy at night, particularly. And there were some other symptoms. So there was obviously more than that going on. But that did go away after about a week or so of using the cell salts. I feel like those symptoms of his silent reflux reduced. So I think that helped, but I can't go out and say, yes, buy this thing because it was amazing.
Do you still use them?
No.
Okay.
I have them. I still have more because it didn't take very many to
That's
help him.
interesting
And
that it like solved.
most people,
long-term.
most people, I read a lot of reviews. I try to find as many scientific studies as I could, but unfortunately there aren't very many scientific studies with homeopathic remedies and natural remedies. So, but I did a lot of research on them. And if you are curious, if anyone's curious, the cell salts, there's a lot of different mixtures of amounts of, the types of minerals that they put in there. And they're all numbered, and they're for totally different things, like migraines for one, and indigestion and gas for another one, and there's lots of anxiety or whatever. But the one that I used for the indigestion was number 10, and they call it Natfoss, Natphos, and I think that's short for I don't know how to pronounce it, natrum phosphoricum, maybe.
Cool.
Anyway, cell salts number 10. That's all I need to know. Cell salts number 10. And that is what we use. And it was really cheap. It was like $10 for a bottle of like 500 tablets. And like I said, for an infant, it was half a tablet with every feeding. So
With what you read, did you gather that it's just for silent reflux, or it could help regular reflux?
No, I can help regular reflux, any kind of gas, indigestion, stuff like that.
And would you have to, when you were administering it, did you have to like make it into a powder, or
It was like salt, like compressed salt. So when you just put it under the tongue and it dissolves, and he was fine with that, and he didn't spit it out or anything.
That's great.
So yeah, we used that. Some of his symptoms went away, some of them didn't. So that's why we were a little unsure if that was doing it. Oh, and like I was saying, I did a lot of research, and most of the reviews, and I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of reviews on this, said that it either drastically reduced or completely got rid of their baby's reflux within like a week, which is what we experienced as well. So
I wish I knew.
Yeah,
I know. Sorry.
The things
It's
we
one
would
of those
do
things
different
we
if
could have talked
knew
about
more.
if it was, but it's not.
Well,
as
hopefully
common.
this will help a mom out there that's maybe experiencing some reflux with their child, or silent reflux, or even just the
Yeah.
symptoms you're talking about, they'll be able to identify that. And
I'll
it'll be helpful.
attach that as well in our show
Yeah,
notes.
I want to know just for future kids because you never know what could come up.
Yeah, and like I said, I can't say for sure that it did it, but that's just our nature. My husband and I both are never going to say this 100% cured,
Yeah.
But it definitely helped, in my opinion. We didn't have any side effects or anything. Like I said, it's just a combination of minerals in a tiny little tablet. So
Did you find any research about probiotics? Like, would that help? Did it?
that I will talk about, actually, because I didn't do that for the reflux. But as he continued to show symptoms, I had to continue researching to figure out what was going on because, like I said, some of his symptoms went down. The wheezing that he was doing went down. He had a very particular cry that I could definitely tell where his throat was sore from the acid, and that went away.
Huh?
The wet burps that he was doing went away. He started spitting up.
Wet burps is a funny word.
Wet burps. He started actually spitting up versus spitting up a little bit, so that changed. And some of his nasal congestion went down as well. So that was great, but he was still getting really, really fussy, especially in the evening. He was constantly hungry, wanting to nurse. He was eating a lot. We took him in for his, I want to say 2-week appointment. They asked me how much he was eating, and he was eating way too much. I think it was 4 ounces, something like that, every feeding. And the doctor said, well, that's a little bit higher because he should be eating around 2 to 3 ounces, but he's a really big baby. He was almost 10 pounds when he was born. So she said that's not uncommon. Since we have addressed these issues, the reflux and the lactose overload, he still is eating 4 ounces and he's almost 3 months old. So he definitely was overeating when he was little. And he was gaining a lot of weight from that as well.
I wonder if that was the same thing with Buddy, because Buddy and Swiss were, I don't know what age they started, but it wasn't uncommon once they were like over 2 months to be eating 3, sometimes 4 ounces a piece.
Yeah, and I, we attributed it to his size before doing any of this research, and then it kind of, when you're researching something and all the symptoms line up, and you're just, oh, that makes so much sense, because I was just, of course, as a new mom, not knowing my baby, not knowing what his different cries are, not knowing what he needs, and he's just so uncomfortable. And it's the one thing that I'm doing for him to help him grow and thrive. Like, I'm feeding him, and that is causing him pain. I mean, the emotional distress from that was so hard. So hard. But being able to figure out what was going on was such a blessing. And so I'll talk a little bit more about some of the symptoms. So being constantly hungry, nursing a lot, because it's soothing, like I said, that actually makes both of these things worse. But that's what he was doing. He was really fussy at night. He wouldn't sleep for very long. He still kind of doesn't, but he does sleep longer now. But cat naps, 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, rather than 1 to 2 hours he was supposed to do. He had a lot of gas. You can hear his stomach, the bubbles and everything every day, especially more towards the evening. He was really bloated as well. His stomach wasn't distended, but you can definitely tell that he had bloating in his stomach. And then the other thing was his poop. So their poop is supposed to be like a yellow mustardy, seedy mustard, with little...
That's exactly what I meant.
Little, well, I don't know how to describe them. I just know what they are. They're fat, undigested fat globules. The little seeds.
Like little balls.
Yeah, the little balls in the poop. That is fat.
I learn something from you every time we do this. I swear, every time. Or you. Yeah. You guys are like knowledge queens. I'm just here to
We're here to bring the knowledge.
I'm here to, like surprised one every episode.
Wow.
I have a purpose. Even if it is just to be surprised.
You and everyone listening, I swear to you, I had never heard of this before. I had to experience it.
Yeah,
so
maybe that's part of it. I just have never even looked into it because it was never an issue.
Yeah.
With this baby.
Yeah.
It could be.
maybe with the future one. But anyways, the poop that Jamie did not have those fat globules, granules, whatever. It was also very mucusy and more liquidy, like liquid mucus versus, I don't know what it's supposed to be. He had normal poop when he was first born, after he got rid of the meconium and stuff. It was pretty normal, yellow, mustardy, whatever, seedy. And then it turned into this. And I believe because that's when my milk started coming in really strong. And then he would also have really explosive poops. And that I know is semi-common for some babies, but it was pretty much every time. So it was just this big mass of mucusy, kind of darker, yellowy orange, and no seeds. No fat seeds.
We should warn everyone not to be eating food for this.
Right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I was thinking like,
pleasant.
we should have some like images to show them.
I do actually. So we will link one of the articles that I have on it. Actually shows side by side pictures of baby poop, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about.
I know what you're saying, Cody, but like I think any parent, like you mentioned this the other day, you're like, I'm surrounded by poop so much between the dog, myself, the baby, like it just doesn't faze me anymore.
Yeah, poop is no longer like a taboo thing. No
yeah,
poop?
yeah.
All right.
But before you continue, I just want to ask our listeners to comment on wherever you're connected, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or on our website or whatever. But do you have a partner who is not okay with it yet, like fluids? Because I don't know if Cody, Jess, do you both, are your spouses kind of like they're okay with it?
He'll change a diaper, but he's still very much like it's not
yeah and Phil's open about that. He's not shy about admitting he doesn't want to be saturated in fluids. Not that I want to be either, but I'm saying I'm not like give me all the spit up, but you know, I'm like better out than in, yay baby. I don't know. So I just feel like there's often a divide almost, or a margin, a difference. So I just wonder if you listeners also can relate, if you have a partner that's like that, and hopefully both of you are great. I don't know if great's the right word. Comfortable enough, you know. But anyway.
I think TJ's great about that, but I just feel like he doesn't have as much exposure to it. So it's not like if Jamie spits up on him, he'll toss the baby away to clean himself up, you know. But
like throws the baby or something.
I just am always covered in fluids, and I think it's just the exposure that makes you okay with it.
Also, have you guys noticed that your husbands have to use more wipes than you do? I'm like a 2 wipe per diaper change, right? You wipe and then you fold, and then you wipe and then you fold, and then you can still get like the other half. You just hold on to the edge and get like any little pieces. It means like 1 wipe. All right, next wipe. And 1 wipe of the butt. Next wipe. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I tend to use more than I feel like I should, but I can't compare between us, but I do know that for a long time, it seemed like the flaps, the tabs that would stick, you know, like I don't know if they're called tabs or something.
Yeah, they're tabs, I think.
Yeah, they would fold in like violently. Like it's the messiest diaper in the world. Awesome. We're going to get as embedded as
where you're
possible.
supposed to close it up.
Yeah, and so it's like, Phil would be upset naturally, and I'm like, just get the tab. And he's like, I'm not going to put my hand in the shiz. I'm like, you don't have to. And it's like, well, what else am I supposed to do? And I don't know what else he was supposed to do, but I didn't feel like it was like an issue with me. Yeah. I would just, maybe I'd grab a wipe or something. I don't know. I think it was a sort of an inevitable situation. You got to close it or waste the bag, which are more like we're running out of those too. So I'm sorry we digress.
It's like, oh yeah, we got way off topic. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about what causes this, because once I found these symptoms, I was over the moon, right? I knew this was what was happening. All of his symptoms lined up. There are other symptoms as well, and so we'll link a couple of articles that like they talk more about poop in these articles, that sometimes it can be green, sometimes it can have a little blood in it. We didn't experience that, thank goodness, because that would have been terrifying. But
so is green poop not good?
It is not. Not until they're eating solids and the food that they're eating affects it. I will give you that information.
Sorry.
In one second. So
maybe if I didn't interrupt you, you would just tell me the information. I'm wondering. All right.
I'm glad you're interested.
I am. I'm curious.
So what causes lactose overload is actually an oversupply or a four milk imbalance. So if you don't know
For milk
anything
compared to
yes, if you don't know anything about breastfeeding, there are two sort of types of milk that you produce. One is foremilk, that's very loose and watery, and it's what comes out first to kind of quench the thirst of the baby. And then hind milk comes out later or with the foremilk, depending on, what your boobs are doing. And the hind milk is just a much more fatty. It's kind of like fat-free milk versus vitamin D or 2% whole milk, whatever. So it's a little kind of like that. So when you have an oversupply, you have way too much foremilk coming out. And imagine, baby's stomach is only so big. They're going to nurse for so long until that stomach is full. Mm-hmm. So they're going to nurse and they're going to fill it with foremilk and then they're going to be done. And the problem with that is that the foremilk has the lactose in it. And when they have too much lactose and they don't have the fatty hind milk to balance it out.
That's why they weren't getting the little seeds, right?
Yes. The digestive system can't really handle. It's like if you as an adult had way too much fiber or something, or if you had lactose intolerance and you ate dairy product. This is not lactose intolerance. Those are two different things. It is possible for a baby to be lactose intolerant, but it is very, very rare.
Well, it's like how we have to have variety in our diet.
Right.
We need to have fruits, vegetables, protein, carbs. Like we have to have them all. If we only eat fruits for a week, we're going to be messed up. It's going to mess us up.
You're going to have some issues. So that was what was going on with his digestion, which is why there was more mucus in his poop. He didn't have the fat globules because it was very sugary. Foremilk is higher in sugar, carbohydrates, natural sugars. And so it was just a total imbalance for him. And I was making it worse. The reason why we talk about, that stigma or whatever, that more is more, you have to boost your supply. I was making it worse because I was pumping to try to build that freezer stash to make sure I had enough, supply. Everything I researched out there said, pump to get your milk going, pump after every feeding so that you have plenty of milk or whatever. And I don't know why. I mean, for some people, I'm sure that is the case. If you have a low milk supply, I'm sure you will need to do some things like that. And my number one word of advice in this entire episode is contact a lactation consultant or more than one. Make sure you get one that you trust that is working well with you, but contact them for your specific situation. Don't just go off of what you're seeing on Pinterest or Google or whatever, because everything I saw was pump, get your milk up.
I was just going to say a good way to, if you're looking for a lactation consultant, because those can be pricey, and especially if you're trying to get information from different lactation consultants. I went to, before I had Emmett and after I had Emmett, a group called La Leche League. And usually, I don't know exactly if this is the case for every single meeting, but every group I went to always had at least one lactation consultant that was certified present. And most of the time there were more than one there. And I felt like that was really helpful even before I was breastfeeding, because I got a lot of the information and they put to rest a lot of those false ideas or some things that society pushes that maybe are not ideal for everyone in every situation.
And check your insurance as well, because my particular insurance did cover a lactation consultant in the hospital as well as afterwards. I can still go and talk to them if I need to. So make sure you check with that. But the most important thing I learned was sometimes your milk supply is going to be fine and you don't want to just be safe. That's kind of what I was doing, was I just wanted to be safe. I kind of had the same attitude as you, Brittany, like, well, if they work, but it's free, so we got to do it. So I got to make sure they work, kind of thing. And so I would make those lactation cookies. I bought the, whatever, I don't remember what it's called now.
Brewer's yeast? Yes,
brewer's yeast. I bought the brewer's yeast to mix in with my shakes and stuff, to increase the supply. I was pumping after every feeding. And a lot of this went in as well because of our experience in the hospital with our lactation consultant, which I talked to you guys a little bit about, but Jamie was a really big baby. They were worried about his blood sugar. And so I had to feed him. And so they wanted me to establish nursing, but he also needed to get more milk from me than I was producing at the moment. So we had to do supplementing with breast milk at the hospital. We had to do a little bit of formula as well. It's kind of a longer story. I won't go into it too much in this episode, but it just gave me a lot of anxiety about making sure that I had enough to feed this gigantic baby that I had that just made me feel like, oh, I'll never provide enough for him to thrive,
Yeah. I don't like that they made you feel like that.
Yeah.
There's some people that didn't like it because they wanted to supplement or wanted to make sure that there was enough. And there are other people that are like, I wanted them to do that. And they didn't. I wanted that extra. I don't know what the good balance is, but
just
communication.
Communication and
asking questions.
Ask questions.
Of making statements that are scary.
I don't want to say be more forceful, but stand up for yourself and
know that's okay to do.
And know that it's okay. If they're saying, oh, your baby's going to die if we don't do this, that's scary, but you can still ask why. Are there other options? I mean, feel free to do that. Unless they physically take your baby away to save its life, there's time to ask questions.
And I think there's a difference in like vibe when it's like really eminent. Like they're probably not going to actually take a lot of time to communicate if it's like a true emergency. Like I feel like you'll know when it's that level. But anything else, you should feel okay and justified and validated with asking for other options, because we were talking the other day about how we don't know what to ask for, because you don't know what you don't know until you know. And so it's like, if you don't ask if there's another option, they'll just do what they feel is best practice, which I think they're doing with good intentions, but because every human is different and humans are employed in these places, they're going to have some level of bias, and then humans are the parents. So it was just a lot of, I feel like, human error and miscommunication. And I don't mean to trivialize it with that, but I believe that that's a big part of it. And then like the biases creep in and stuff.
I was thinking, when I said they should ask more questions, I was talking about healthcare providers.
That's what I thought you meant.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think we as people could ask more questions too, but I think that healthcare providers, instead of going in with this preconceived notion, this person's not going to have enough milk, or this person's going to have too much milk, or whatever it is, this person wants this, just go in and ask if they want it.
Yeah.
And see where they're at. And I get that can be, again, I advocate questions. I ask a lot of questions. I think it's great when people ask questions, because otherwise, how do we know?
Yeah. So I would say a lactation consultant from the hospital just came and helped me right after Jamie was born. So I didn't choose her, but I would say that's one thing to look for, because you can't really control a lot of healthcare professionals and how they conduct themselves, but you can control your choice sometimes of who to go and talk to. And if they seem engaging, if they seem interested in your situation and asking those questions, I think they're going to be a better choice. Because when she came, she helped me, and it may have been longer, but for me, it felt like 5 minutes. It felt like she was, okay, hold him here, hold your boob here. Okay. Oh, he's crying. Okay. We're going to give you this nipple shield. And that's what it felt like to me, how quick it was, that I didn't have time to get him, because he needed to eat. He needs to eat within 2 hours. So, are we going to give him a bottle, or are you going to nurse him with this nipple shield?
Quick, make a decision in your distress state.
Right? Right. That's how I
know
felt.
You're like broken down in every way, but figured out.
And they literally put it on me. She opened the package. You get it a little wet because it helps to the suction or whatever. So she opened the package. She got it wet. She put it on me, and then she grabbed my boob and grabbed his head and shoved it on, and
personal
he latched.
Space issues.
Right? I know. It was a very intense situation. And she wasn't the only one in there. I swear that there was a nurse in there as well who was checking my vitals. My husband was in there. I mean, it was a very stressful situation, but he latched with the shield. But I also had to do a syringe supplement, which I can't remember if I've talked about that on the podcast before, but because, obviously I'm only giving a little bit of colostrum because I just gave birth, and they wanted
now, I'm sure.
Yes. But they wanted him to have actual calories. So I had to have hospital breast milk in a syringe with the tube inside the nipple shield. So he was latched on me, but I was, syringing this milk into his mouth from that as well to supplement. So it was a lot. It was very intense. And I wish that I had I wish I was a little more brave to just kind of say, wait, stop for a second. Is he going to die if I take a few minutes to think about this and ask questions? And I just didn't. I just kind of went with it. And it was a very frustrating several weeks coming home and trying to figure out how to wean him off of all of this stuff and get him to latch naturally. And because I had plenty of milk, the supply wasn't a problem. It never was. And they just kind of were worried about it. So,
yeah. So I think that maybe I had an overproduction of milk. And I remember when I was going to La Leche League, them talking about hind milk and fore milk and how you want to make sure your baby's getting both. It's really important that they get both. And so what I ended up doing, because I had so much milk, is I would have him nurse on one side, not pump on that side at all. And for that feeding, pump the entire other side and just alternate for feedings. And I feel like that worked for us. And I found this, I didn't pump for very long, like my milk regulated after a while, but I enjoyed the time where I had extra milk that I could give to people. I liked that. That was once my milk started going, my milk supply started regulating, I was like, screw this. This sucks. I'm like pumping for 30 minutes and nothing's coming out. No. Because as they get bigger, they need more milk. And Emmett was just drinking enough that he needed what was in both of my, he needed all I had to offer.
Yeah.
But before that, I appreciated the fact that I had extra milk and I enjoyed pumping and giving it away. So maybe that's an option for moms out there.
I think having a supply is great. It makes me feel good to know that if something were to happen to my supply or to me, that I have, because I had an overproduction and I pumped a ton, I have probably a good couple of months worth of breast milk in my freezer that my husband can just feed him that. And then, and then he'll be probably ready to eat solids around that time. So I feel good about having that, but it's not necessary for me because I'm not going back to work. I really don't need that much. Yeah. And it was just creating more of an issue, which you mentioned that you might have had an oversupply as well. I will just mention a couple of things that I experienced, which led me to believe I had an oversupply. My boobs were always full and painful.
Mine didn't hurt, but they were always full.
Always. Like I could never empty. Everything said, oh, make sure he empties it because that's how he gets the hind milk. I'm like, empty? What? He'll eat. I'll pump for 30 minutes and then I'll still have milk. That means I have too much. That means there's an oversupply. I would leak all the time. I still do all the time. And it is so, so annoying. And yeah, I think pumping on one side while you feed on the other is a good idea, but just know that with any stimulation, any release of breast milk, whether it's hand expressing, pumping, using a Haka, which I also have, and they're great, or feeding, is going to stimulate more milk.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted at the time. I didn't have a problem with that because I wanted to keep up that supply because I was storing, I figured if I was pumping and feeding him the same amount, it should stay consistent. If I pump more, I'll get more. If I pump less, I'll get less. That was my theory. I don't know if that's exactly how the science works, but
it is. Yep.
I didn't see a problem with it because I felt like I had a good routine of him just eating on one side. And I also was concerned because I had real milk in the hospital. I had colostrum for like 2 hours and then it turned into real milk. And so I was concerned that he wasn't, that's the whole reason why I started just feeding him on one side, because I thought he's going to be getting a lot of fore milk. If I try to feed him on both sides, I just have too much right now.
And that's what I was doing too. I was switching him every feeding. So it was every 1 to 2 hours he was switching off, which also was not a good thing to do. And then I was pumping in addition to that.
Wait, why wasn't it a good thing?
Because he wasn't emptying me out.
Oh, I see.
He wasn't eating enough to empty it.
Right.
But, so were you feeding him on both sides every feeding and then pumping both sides?
No, I was only feeding him on one side per feeding, but then I would, for the next feeding, would make sure I did it on the other side.
Yeah.
Which is semi-normal. And actually, most of the things that I saw said for one feeding, feed him on one side until it empties and then feed him on the other side.
Oh.
I had so much milk, I would never be able to use both breasts in one feeding. He would be full before one was empty. So I never was able to do that.
Yeah.
So
if you have an oversupply next time, what is your plan?
It's a good question.
Do you not? Yeah, like, is there a way to combat that for women who have too much milk?
Yes. And what I had to do, it got to the point where, like I said, my breasts were full and painful all the time. I could, like I said, feed him on one side, and one side was actually producing more than the other, which I think I talked to you, Brittany, about lazy boob or slacker boob, which I thought the right side was just a slacker, because I'm like, oh, the left's rocking. I can get, 5 ounces of milk. I literally could pump for 15 to 20 minutes and, have 5 ounces of milk on one side. So awesome. Which is awesome, but too much.
Right. I just mean awesome in that, like, when I was at work and I was pumping and my boss was saying, like, how long do you need? Like, max 15 minutes? And I was like, laughed in his face, 15 minutes is like warming up. So that would have been great there's a whole another variables to deal with, but just in the time element, I'm like, oh, so impressive.
Yeah, it was very short. But then I would do 30 minutes on the right side because it was not producing as much. I would only get 2 ounces on the right side, and just like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you doing as much as the left? Little did I know the right was actually like doing its job, and the left was just all overzealous. So just be aware of that. So yes, I would pump extra on the right to try to beef it up, and then both of them were totally full and swollen and painful, and I had so much milk. And then I found out this problem and realized, oh, my bad. I probably need to kick back a little bit. So a couple of things that you can do. And I will say again, make sure that you talk to a lactation consultant or a lactation specialist before doing anything, because anything that you do change in your routine is going to affect your supply. And it is true, Cody, the more you pump and feed, the more milk you're going to make. The less you pump and feed, the less milk you're going to make. That's just how the body works most of the time. So what I started to do was block feeding, and I actually had to do something really, really drastic that in my research, everyone who said this is an option, but you shouldn't do it without consulting. And I will say I didn't consult a lactation consultant. I live on the edge. So I just went ahead and tried this because it was so extreme. I mean, I was in so much pain on my left side. It was like only my left. I was in so much pain. I had to fix it quick. So it's called block feeding, and block feeding is basically feeding on one side for a particular amount of time, whether that's 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, only on one side. So that basically to make sure that it gets emptied, that your baby gets the hind milk for sure.
Oh my gosh, I did this. I did this too. I would only feed on one side, the full side, through the whole night, because I had a slacker boob. I didn't know any of this. I just like was figuring out. Yeah, I was like, this boob's really full. You're just gonna eat from this one until it doesn't hurt anymore. Yeah, and the other boob will suffice. Like it'll deal.
But for me, I did the opposite of that, because my left side was so full that I fed him on my right side for 24 hours.
Whoa.
Did not feed him on the left for 24 hours.
And you just left that other breast alone.
Oh yeah. I had ice packs. So I have the Lancino ice packs that you can put into your bra. I have like 8 of those because I got some and then a couple other people gave me some. So I just constantly had those in to reduce the amount of pain. You only pump, or I would recommend Hand Express, not pump, because Hand Express actually gets less milk, but I think it relieves more of the pressure.
Massage, because that's something. I had milk, but it was really up high, and so I'd have to massage it kind of down, because the pump wouldn't do it. Yeah, I'd have to push it down basically.
I feel like my breast pump pulled out more of the foremilk than when I Hand Express. I could see, that's another symptom of oversupply. If you can squeeze your breast and have 5 or 6 shoots of milk, that was me.
I wouldn't have to squeeze my boob. I'd like get in the shower.
Yep.
And it'd be like a spray party in there.
Yep.
My boobs.
I accidentally, every time I lifted up to feed him, I'd squirt him in the face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, a lot of different shoots of milk. That's your foremilk. And then it would kind of drip hind milk. That's more fatty. So you can kind of see a little bit of drip.
So it's okay to quote unquote waste that. Like if you are having an oversupply.
That was my thing too. Waste. Because, everyone's like, oh, I spilled my 1 ounce of breast milk and I'm going to cry. you've seen those stories. And I was it's like those. Liquid gold, right? That's what you call it, liquid gold. You have to save every drop. by the end of it, I was like, shoot, I'm just going to squeeze this 5 ounces of milk into the sink because I've got so much in my and it's all for milk and I can't give it to Jamie because it's going to make him sick.
Right.
So I got over that liquid gold aspect real fast. It just is not, I don't know. It's more of a pain to me than a treasure.
When I don't know if I had an oversupply issue or anything, because my whole first, I don't know, several months I had a similar mentality, or I was seeking milk from other people because I had in my head, I have twins, I can't make enough, pour me, whatever, right? But there was a time or two at least, maybe more, that I'd get in the shower and that happened. It was probably just at the very beginning because it didn't happen very often, and I was like, stop, like trying to cover it. I know.
Save it.
I know, like if you're trying to make fried eggs and it breaks and you like try to like clot it, you know, like I'm trying to like hold the milk.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I probably could have fed Jamie and your twins with my amount of milk. I'm sure
did.
Cody
Yeah.
could have.
Yeah.
And that's kind of another one of my solutions. I was like, I'll just feed other babies.
Yeah.
I just breastfed. I breastfed my sister-in-law's babies.
And
I breastfed
that
Brittany's
could
babies.
be why you didn't have a problem with Emmett. If
I just
you
found babies and I was like,
Yeah.
they want milk? I got milk. I got so much.
I was so glad that my kids like took it well, that they didn't, at least it didn't sound like they, resisted or whatever. I know I've tried nursing Emmett and he's like,
not about it. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. Like almost only slightly better than when Eden tried to nurse. Like you at least have real breasts. I feel like this
These
is familiar,
aren't, like,
but
hairy and flat. Actually, I don't know. I shouldn't talk about your breasts.
they're
Like,
not
I know what
hairy.
They look like.
They're not hairy or flat. I mean, you can see there's at least. Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, for the block feeding, I did 24 hours on one side. So I fed him only on my right side, let the left side blow up like a friggin' balloon. And then I hand expressed enough for me, like I said, a little bit throughout the day, but not much. And then at the end, I hand expressed just in the shower. And then I was like, this milk's not going to go away. I need to pump it out. So then I did a full pump on the left side. I think I did like 30 minutes and I had to use a couple of bottles because the little breast pump bottles only do like 5 ounces or whatever, right. 6 ounces. So I pumped in as empty as I could. And then I went to sleep and I woke up and it was actually soft, like normal. And throughout the rest of that day and subsequent days, I still did a block feeding, but I reduced it way down to 4 hours. I think I did 6 hours and then 4 hours. So I would only feed on one side for 6 hours or 4 hours, and then I would switch and do the other side. And so I did that for a while until my supply actually went not low, but it was lower than I would like it to be. And so then I started pumping, and I had stopped pumping as well. I only pumped or hand expressed to relieve the pressure when it was full. So then I went back to pumping just once a day in the morning. I would wake up and I would feed him, and then I would pump on both sides just for 10 minutes because that's how long he feeds. I don't need to pump for 30 minutes if he only feeds for 10. That was something I learned. So a couple of things. You mentioned probiotics, Cody. We did also introduce probiotics to him to help him. And I will say we are still dealing with the lactose overload. It has gotten way better. My supply has gotten to be normal. The other thing that I do, like I said, is I nurse him on demand, but I don't pump except for that one time in the morning. And that has helped, once I did the block feeding, to really drastically cut the supply, getting it back up just by nursing him when he wants to nurse, for how long he wants to nurse, which I should have just done from the beginning. Just nurse on demand, let the baby decide the supply, at least for me. Like I'm saying, I've said a couple of times, if you have a low supply, this episode is not for you. These tips are not for you.
And if you're concerned, it is good to reach out and do research. I think what you did was a really good way to handle it. You did a lot of research. You took your research to your doctor. You did go to a breastfeeding consultant, and even if you didn't when you were being a rebel, you did originally, right? You got what she had to say.
Yes.
And maybe from this experience, the only thing that could have been helpful was going to like a LHA League group and asking them in advance before you had Jamie, like, hey, is this true? Does everyone need to pump?
Yeah.
Does everyone need to eat lactation cookies? And hopefully they would have been able to answer some of those questions so you could gauge it better. But I think I think you did a great job handling it.
Thank you. So just a couple last things before we wrap up. So I did do the probiotic, and we still do that. And he has reacted well to this. And I believe that it is helping him digest the lactose, because we still have the issue with the poop. His fussiness has gone way down. His gassiness has gone way down. He doesn't overeat, and he doesn't have any of the other kind of reflux symptoms. Like I said, those have all reduced and stayed gone or reduced. But he still has, sometimes he'll have evening colic where he'll just, cry because he's uncomfortable, because he has because he's trying to digest all of the milk that I've just fed him all day. And it just doesn't feel good. And so the probiotic is really, really helping him with that. And we use, and we'll link it as well in the show notes, but I use the BioGaia, I think that's how you pronounce it, probiotic, BioGaia, BioGaia. And so that one is really helping him. We do that just every morning. And then the other thing that saved us was the gripe water. We use the gripe water when he gets really uncomfortable in the evenings. He loves the taste of it. He'll eat, and I don't do a full dose because I think for his age or his weight, it's like more than the 1 syringe worth that they include. So I'd have to do 2 syringes worth, and it just takes a long time for him to eat it all. So I just do 1 syringe worth, which I think is like 3 mils, and he'll eat that, and it will help him. And you can definitely tell it's natural, and it's like ginger and fennel extract with stevia or some kind of natural sweetener, which I use ginger and fennel when I have digestive issues. And so I thought, this hopefully will work. And it does. And you can definitely tell that it breaks up the gas bubbles and helps his digestion, helps him feel better pretty instantly. So those are a couple of things that we do in addition to regulating the supply. There was an option listed as well to give a lactose-free formula if those steps didn't improve it, which they did. So we didn't have to go to a formula that was lactose free, but that is an option. So some of the lessons that I learned from this experience, as I've said, just in the beginning, at least, trust your milk supply. Just feed on demand. Let the baby decide how much they need. I don't have anything against pumping, but just be aware that when you pump, you are going to increase your supply, and you may not need to pump after every feeding. If you're not going back to work, if you don't need to have a huge freezer stash, it's if your lifestyle doesn't demand having that, then there shouldn't be a need for it, in my opinion. Also, that your boobs should not be bursting or full or in pain. I just thought that initially when my milk came in, it was like I instantly had an oversupply, and I just thought that's what it was like. I just thought, I'm just going to leak all the time, and they're going to be super full, and I'm going to have all this milk, and that's just how it is. And it's not, because I'm a little bit back to normal now, and I feel normal. I still leak, and I still have plenty of milk, probably more than I need, but I don't feel pain all the time.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah, I think the difference of what you're saying is all the time. Like, because Cody, you've said that you don't feel a letdown sting, and I didn't at the beginning, but then I did later. And so if you do feel like a sting or something while it's letting down, that's normal or not unusual, I should say, but not all the time.
That was something I experienced as well when I was very full. First of all, it was hard for him to latch when I was very full, because it's just a more round surface. It's not as soft.
It's like trying to get your ball, like instead of a straw, it's a ball.
Right.
Like a beach ball that you're trying to get your mouth around. And it's tricky.
It's hard. And so that was a struggle. He was also used to using the nipple shield, which was a lot easier for him to latch. So trying to wean him off of that with a full breast was just way hard. And also, that was one thing I didn't mention, was a deep latch. A deep latch with a strong suck can help them get the hind milk more than just like a little on the tip, Yeah, so him being used to the nipple shield where he didn't have to have a deep latch, he still doesn't have a real deep latch. And I think that's why we still have a bit of a problem. But just know that the deeper the latch, the more boob you can get into their mouth, the more hind milk they're going to get, rather than the foremilk, which just, comes out really easily. And then the last thing that I learned was that I didn't know was that you have time to figure this out. Your milk does not set, quote unquote, set for 16 weeks. I did not know that.
Wow.
So I just thought, if I don't do this, right as soon as I get home or even in the hospital, my supply is going to go way down. That is not the case in a lot of women. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions, but
changes.
Right.
Even now, there are times when Emmett's sick and he wants to nurse all the time, and then he gets healthy and he doesn't. And I'm like, my boobs are full. Like he was eating a lot, and now he's not interested in eating a lot, and I have extra milk.
Yeah, it was after learning that I felt more comfortable experimenting with the block feeding and reducing the pumping and everything, because I thought, oh, I actually have time to do this. And I think the reason, I mean, I don't know scientifically how this works out, but 16 weeks is around 4 months when they usually start sitting up and start eating solids in a lot of cases. So I think maybe some of it correlates with that. But yeah, just relax about it. I think it was like my biggest thing was relax, trust the professionals, and you have time to figure it out. So yeah, here we are, and he is latching and breastfeeding without any other interventions. The nipple shield is gone, and my supply is regulated, and the boobs feel good. So I'm glad that I found this out. I'm glad that I can share it with you guys and with our listeners, and I hope that it helps somebody else along the way.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing it, especially because if nothing else, it's so interesting that I've never heard of lactose overload. Like we already discussed throughout the episode, it was always there's only one issue. Like you either have normal amount or a lack, or what's a deficiency, and so I'm just for pure information purposes, I hope that the listeners enjoy it, but if somebody's dealing with that, I hope that they also appreciate that information. And of course what we talked about at the beginning of reflex and silent reflex, another thing that I had never heard of. So thanks so much. We are going to continue talking about this in our postpartum episode, where we expound on the episode topic and share more of our thoughts. But before we conclude, Jess has a recipe for us today.
Yeah, so one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit more in the postpartum as well is some of the dietary things that you can do when your baby has reflux or lactose overload, or you have issues with even lactose deficiency as part of it as well. But one of those things is dairy. My doctor, the very first thing she recommended was to cut dairy, which is not the case. Not the case necessarily. I know, right?
Hard thing to
so
get
hard.
rid of.
Which is why I was hesitant to do it. And it's not actually helpful it doesn't have anything to do with lactose overload. So I did that for a little bit, but I am eating dairy now and it's fine.
Live long.
Yeah, it's so hard. But for those people who are experiencing this, who may want to cut dairy, I chose a recipe that was dairy free and also free of a lot of these things that we'll talk about in postpartum that kind of make nursing a little bit more difficult for your baby. So my recipe is cranberry orange chicken. And it is either a crock pot or an instant pot recipe, which is how I live my life. And it only has 3 ingredients. So you just have fresh or frozen chicken and a can of cranberry, either jellied cranberry or cranberry sauce, whatever you prefer. And then like a cup of orange juice. And that's it. And it's amazing. And you can have it with rice or whatever vegetable you want. And then if you want to make your own cranberry sauce as well before doing this one, if you want to do it from scratch rather than using canned cranberry, I'll include an Instant Pot recipe for cranberry sauce that you can just do that first and then pop in your chicken and orange juice to cook that.
I love that. Is it more sweet or orangey? Or I guess tart is cranberry.
I think it's a good balance. It's not like sweet. It's not, it's chicken. It's not a dessert, but it does have a little bit of a citrusy sweetness to it. It can be good for fall, kind of like Thanksgiving-y flavors, but we have it all the time with, cool. all year round. So
awesome. Well, thanks again. Make sure to tune in next week. We have a special episode as April is Congenital Diaphragmatic Hernia Awareness Month, and we have a guest who has kindly agreed to share her story. Check us out at our website at partumthemess.com, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at partumthemess. That's patreon.com/partumthemess. And so I just want to thank you for listening. We appreciate your support. And
Part of the mess.
We're making memories.